We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him.
This morning, a jury is deciding the fate of a man who used a deadly chokehold on another man during a tense subway confrontation. We're monitoring that courthouse in New York. Plus, lingering questions in the case of Hannah Kobayashi. We know she left for Mexico, but why did her dad kill himself? And what's happening with the GoFundMe? Hannah's sister is now speaking out. Also this hour, a girlfriend discovers that her Prince Charming has been secretly recording sex tapes of her. And guess what? It's only a misdemeanor. Plus, our epic week of sentencing continues today as we're looking ahead to the burn pile murder trial and the family drama that could tip the scales for Melody Ferris. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Wednesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. It's great to have you along with us for some coffee and some court, as I like to say. So go ahead and grab that cup of coffee right now. Let's start things off. It's time for my opening statement. The Black Swan is a jailbird now. Former ballerina Ashley Benefield will be spending the next 20 years in prison for killing her husband, Doug. This means that she can start her next ballet school in the Slammer. Good riddance. Her story was ridiculous. So was the demonstration that she tried to sell to the jury. But the jury saw right through her pitiful, lying, crying performance. They knew that she didn't shoot Doug in self-defense. She shot him to end the marriage. To her, it was a lot easier than divorce. The way I see the evidence, Ashley Benefield used a good man. Used him for his money, used him for a baby, and then when he was of no use to her, she discarded him in the most cruel way, robbing his two daughters of their beloved father. I wouldn't have been surprised if the judge had given her 30 years. She's lucky the jury didn't convict her of murder. She's lucky, because on the facts, they certainly could have. May Doug Benefield rest in peace. May his daughters always know how much he loved them. May his family find some comfort and peace in knowing that the Black Swan's wings have been clipped and Lady Justice has prevailed. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it right now. It's time for your daily docket.
Anything on them? What's that? You got anything on them? I don't know. I just put them out.
We're in verdict watch for the subway chokehold trial for Daniel Penny. In South Carolina, the defendant in the coroner affair murder trial made a partial plea before opening statements started on Tuesday. Christopher Dontel is going to, will stand trial for the murder of his lover's partner today, but the plea hearing expected to start at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So we'll see what happens then. And we've got a brand new case we're tracking for you at Court TV. We've got the missing student murder trial. Sheldon Timothy Harrington is charged with murdering an Ole Miss student who was known in the LGBTQ community. Court convenes there at 10 a.m. Eastern. Now, the fate of Daniel Penny is in the hands of the jury. The former Marine accused of killing Jordan Neely, a homeless street performer. And the accusation is that he put him in a chokehold for too long on a subway train back in May of 2023. Now, Neely was reportedly behaving erratically, shouting threats and begging people for money on the train. Witnesses say that he was unarmed and did not physically assault anyone. In a press conference on Tuesday, Neely's family attorney spoke out about how the defendant mistook Neely as a threat.
They were houseless, so they must have been about to attack us. They must have been about to hurt us. So we had the right to take his life because our life matters more. That's not the situation we want to live in. That's not the community we want to have. We don't want it where you can kill someone because you thought there was a possibility they could do something to you. There was no attack. Mr. Neely did not attack anyone. He did not touch anyone. He did not hit anyone. But he was choked to death. And that can't stand.
Oh, if you recognize that attorney as Dante Mills, you are right. One of our favorite legal analyst guests here on Court TV. Yes, he is representing the Neely family in this one and speaking out to those who are interested in this case. We know it's garnered a tremendous amount of interest, and we know that Daniel Penny is claiming that he was defending other people on that subway, acting in defense of self and defense of others is what it's illegally called. But prosecutors are deeming his behavior to be reckless. They're telling the jury that he held Jordan Neely in that chokehold for far too long. If he's convicted, he's looking at 15 years in prison if he's convicted on the count of second-degree manslaughter. And if he is convicted of negligent homicide, he's looking at even more time there. Now, cameras are not allowed in court, but we will be updating you as soon as the jury reaches a decision. Or if they have any questions, we'll tell you about that too, certainly. Now, we've assembled a tremendous power panel of experts to dig into this case. That's quite nuanced. Very tricky stuff here. Let's bring in the guests now. With me, criminal defense and civil rights attorney Kasia Early, retired FBI special agent and the host of Break the Case on YouTube, Jennifer Coffindeffer, and retired lieutenant. He was a commanding officer of the Nassau County Police K-9 unit. He served in New York City. Prior to that, he's a K-9 expert now, Lieutenant Mike Gould. Great to see you all. Lieutenant, you started your career patrolling the streets of New York City. I want to start with you here. Your thoughts on this case, please.
Yeah, Julie, good morning. Good morning to everybody. Yeah, so I think I have a pretty unique and personal perspective on this. I've been traveling using the New York City subway systems for the past 60 years. So it's been an evolution as a little boy, as a student, as a police officer, and now, sadly, as a senior citizen. So I've seen the dangers that take place on the subway system. And for those people around the country who's never been on a New York City subway, you know, it's not the Chattanooga choo-choo. You're trapped in a car under the ground, and there's really not a lot of help coming for you. So you're on your own. So my perspective is obviously a little different. I try to put myself in everybody's position. I see this, it's like a Rorschach test. I see Daniel Penny as a good Samaritan that tried to restrain emotionally disturbed person. And obviously people are going to have different opinions about that. But I think he did the very best he could. I'm very familiar with the carotid chokehold. I've been the subject of that many times, actually. It used to be called a sleeper hold when I was a kid in wrestling. So I have a different perspective, but I'm happy to listen to everybody's actually opinion on this.
I know you are. Lieutenant, appreciate your expertise on that. I have a clip I want to play of Daniel Penny. He's describing the incident. So this is from his perspective. Let's take a listen together.
We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him. And the videos didn't start until they saw that situation was under control. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest indicating that he was still breathing. And I'm calibrating my grip based on the force that he's exerting.
Okay, let's look at the legal aspects of this now. Kasia Early, this is where I want to go to you. You do both criminal defense and civil rights work. Give us your thoughts on the case, if you would, please.
Well, I'll tell you this. Although Daniel Penny may be eloquent in explaining how he administered this chokehold, it does not make it legally right in this case. And I'll tell you why. He first said that no one was recording because they were too scared. And I disagree with that. I do believe that they started to record because they realized, wait a minute, everything's under control. The ones that were scared, the threat, is no longer on the subway. And you can also see that he is not resistant. In fact, he's asking for help. He's tapping the leg. that's next to him, the fear was no longer present. So at that point, this chokehold that he had him in, he could have loosened up because he started what he believed to be to protect the others, but the others were no longer on the train. And I do believe that they started to record to show that, wait a minute, this may be excessive. Why don't you loosen up a little bit? But also what he's saying, which is why I don't believe that he testified, because that would be considered hearsay. You can't testify as to what someone else was thinking because you don't know. Now, you can testify as to their appearance, but as far as being frightened or afraid, did that rise to the level of you exerting so much force that you killed this man? This was simply disorderly conduct that would have been a misdemeanor, not a life or death sentence. And we live in a society where there's people with mental issues every day. That does not mean that you engage and attempt to be the superhero and then you kill that person and claim that you were doing what you thought was right. If you're going to administer that death chokehold, also administer aid once you realize he had a lifeless body.
Kecia, thank you so much for your perspective. And he was using drugs, did have mental health difficulties, sadly. Many facets to this, as we know, making it so complicated. Jennifer Coffindeffer, I want to go to you next, please. I have a clip of officers who were checking Jordan Neely for a pulse. Let's take a look at this together.
You got a pulse or no? I feel a pulse. You feel a pulse? You breathing, right?
Try it on the wrist. Try it on the wrist. This one?
You got a pulse. You breathing?
I feel like...
Nah, I feel the pulse. You got a pulse? You got a pulse?
Yo, man.
He put him on pulse.
Stay with me.
He's breathing. Relax. Get off the train. How about you get off the train?
Jen, you served as a medic. You know what that's like, being in these positions. Give us your thoughts on this case, if you would, please.
Well, I'm going to speak from the position of applying this hold, of being in the fight, of being in the throes of trying to get somebody under control who is completely not under control. I've used this hold myself. We were trained on it at the FBI. And I can tell you the purpose is to actually put a vice type situation on the carotid arteries, which causes the person to lose consciousness. There's no way when you're in the throes of this fight for your life, the struggle, not knowing if they're going to come to, that you can calculate exactly when to stop holding. Anyone who has been in such a fight understands that there's just no way to know. And again, the whole idea is to render somebody unconscious. It's not to kill them in any way, shape, or form. I think there were a lot of contributing factors, including possibly, according to the doctor that testified, schizophrenia. There was drugs in his system, and that contributed. And Julie, I want to say one more thing. I think the fact that he did have a pulse, according to these medics, that shows he wasn't dead at that point. And I think that that's going to be an important point for the jury to consider.
That's an excellent point, Jen. And I have to tell you, without us being able to have eyes on this trial, and our viewers know, Court TV tried. We wanted to be in there. We wanted to have the cameras so that all of you can give us analysis in real time. Unfortunately, the court excluded them. But that is an important point, because I think that is a misconception that he was, in fact, deceased. But thank you for pointing that out. Lieutenant Gould, we have just a couple of seconds here. I want to go back to you. You're in New York City. You know, you've served there for many, many years. Tell us, do you think that these jurors are going to have difficulty even coming to a decision on this one?
Yep. It's objective reasonableness. You have to put your eyes in his eyes at the moment before, during, and after this event took place. And that's how the standard for the use of force, Graham versus Connor, says what was the person thinking, not necessarily the witnesses. So I think it's going to be an acquittal or a hung jury, without a doubt.
I appreciate all of your perspectives. Great having so much varied expertise on this segment. Of course, we'll keep following this one. If there are any questions from the jury or if they come back with a verdict, we'll, of course, report it here immediately. Still ahead for you here on Opening Statements this morning. Here's what we've got.
I'm just in shock. I'm just in shock. And
you recognized yourself right off the bat?
Yes. Yeah. It was definitely me, him and I. In intimate moments that I had no idea he recorded.
Wait till you hear this story. A Tennessee woman is speaking out after she found out her boyfriend was secretly recording sex tapes of the two of them. That's right, without her permission. Her boyfriend, who she loved, was doing that. We'll talk about it. But first, the missing Hawaiian woman that made national headlines located entering Mexico. Still, though, so many unanswered questions like what really happened to Hana Kobayashi's father? We'll discuss it next.
Tonight on Court TV.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case. It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan. Tonight at 8/7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Your mind goes to abduction. It goes to trafficking, and we're just terrified.
Love you, Hannah. I miss you, and don't be afraid to call. You know, if you can, call, please.
That was Hana Kobayashi's father. At the end there, you heard Ryan, who died by suicide during the search for his daughter. This case is what's trending this morning in true crime. On Monday, Los Angeles police declared Hana Kobayashi a voluntary missing person. Voluntary being the key word here. This after watching surveillance footage of the 30-year-old crossing the Mexican border. She did it alone, did it on foot. Now, LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell issued this statement regarding Hana Kobayashi, saying, quote, "Our priority is ensuring Ms. Kobayashi's safety and well-being. We urge Ms. Kobayashi to contact her family, law enforcement, or personnel at the U.S. Embassy to let us know she is safe. She has the right to privacy, and we respect her choices. But we also understand the concern her loved ones feel. A simple message could reassure those who care about her." Now, Kobayashi's family last heard from her on November 11th. Her family saying that she missed a connecting flight at LAX. She was traveling from her home in Maui to New York. So we're asking this morning, what's your reaction to the police declaring Hana Kobayashi a voluntary missing person? Let's bring back in our power panel. Attorney Casey Early, retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindeffer, and retired Lieutenant Mike Gould. Agent Coffindeffer, I want to start with you on this one, please. I know you've been following this case since its inception. What are your thoughts on that declaration, please?
Well, I think it's the correct declaration, and that's because at the end of the day, the LAPD expended a lot of money and resources and time, and so did other agencies. And because of that, when they realized that she crossed without anyone in her presence, there was nothing showing any coercion. It was clear to them that it seemed to be of her own free will. And while I don't think she's probably very safe alone in Tijuana, which the State Department has said is quite a concern in that particular area, I still believe it was the correct designation.
I appreciate it, Jen. Lieutenant Gould, let me go to you here. As Agent Coffindeffer was noting, a lot of resources, a lot of time spent. America got real interested. As you all know, TikTok got really interested in this case. People around the world wondering what the heck happened. What are your thoughts on this declaration?
Yeah, so I completely agree with Jennifer. Look, if this was my loved one and I have complete empathy, I'd want the National Guard looking for them. But law enforcement aren't private investigators. Once they establish something was voluntary and there was no criminality at foot, or at least reasonably think so, this is what they can do. They can appeal. I think they went above and beyond. I've taken many, many, many missing persons reports, and I understand the anguish from the family members, but 90% of these things are not necessarily what they appear to be at the first report of a person missing. So I'm with Jennifer on that.
I appreciate it, Lieutenant. Casey Early, last but not least, I want to go to you on this point. Your thoughts on the declaration, please. Oh, and we're having trouble hearing you, Casey. Let's see, are you muted? You want to try again?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hey,
start from the
Julie.
beginning if you don't
Yes.
mind, please. Thank you, Fred.
Absolutely. So I do understand the reasons behind declaring Hannah voluntarily missing, but I also understand the perspective behind the family, because I don't believe that even if she went away and decided to get away from the family, 12 days later, her father committed suicide because of the stress that was placed upon him looking for his daughter. And I even without her cell phone, she still has access to the report. So I do believe that this, in the circumstances, is not voluntarily a missing persons case, although it had to be declared that way under the circumstances. But my heart goes out to the family, because now they are burying their father and also still mourning the loss of their sister/loved one.
Beautifully said, Casey. Yeah, I know all of your hearts are going out to the family. Mine as well. It just makes you wonder what the heck happened. And did Hannah Kobayashi ever find out what her dad did? I mean, this is horrific. So let's talk more about the family and what we do know. So we know that some of them are speaking out. We know Hannah's sister, Sydney, spoke with NBC News, giving her reaction to this case. Let's take a listen.
We didn't have any confirmation at all, like from LAPD, that there was actually, like, haven't been shown that there was footage at all for us to confirm as her family that actually was in fact her. So right now, you know, as I've stated previously in a statement, we kind of just feel left in the dark, and we're just confused and just frustrated more than anything right now.
Okay, a little bit of what she said on Tuesday. She gave this interview to NBC again. Now, so another layer is what happens with the GoFundMe money, right? So the page was organized by Sydney, Hannah's sister, created to aid in the search for Hannah, who's 30 years old. Cindy updated the page on Tuesday and said that the funds that they collected are now going to be used for the funeral of her father, Ryan. So now our next question is, what are some of the next steps here? What do we foresee happening with the family, with any perhaps legal issues that may arise here? What about the biggest outstanding questions in all of your minds on this one? So let's go around the room again, so to speak. Back to you, Lieutenant Gould.
Yeah, so Julie, obviously now it is a missing persons, but I don't believe there's criminality afoot at the moment. That might change tomorrow. Drug traffic or sex traffickers usually don't let their victims wander around Los Angeles without just freely. So kidnappers would have reached out to the family. So there's so many unanswered questions. I think that technology is going to be the key here. Somewhere along the line, she's going to appear somewhere, whether this was a mental breakdown that she had, an emotional breakdown, that's all unknown. But I think technology is going to solve this problem, and she will appear at some point.
Oh, that's an excellent point, Lieutenant. Yeah, everybody was stunned, right, when we see the video of her at the Grove in LA. For anybody who's never been there, it's a beautiful shopping, restaurant area. It's really nice, and she misses the flight. Everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, we just saw her at the airport, missed the flight, but then she's there. Why? And then her poor dad. Her dad dies by suicide after 13 days of looking for her. Agent Coffindaffer, your thoughts on the questions surrounding that mystery?
Well, I think if we are to believe the family, which we have no reason not to believe the family, look, people have been so hard on this family on social media. It's so hard to watch. They've lost their father. They said because of absolutely being grief-stricken. Remember, looking for somebody for 13 days. They said he was exhausted, and I think he did commit suicide because of a broken heart and probably a lot of regret with everything that had happened. Having said that, she will remain a missing person. She's still on the California missing persons roll. And if she returns to the United States, the Los Angeles Police Department has said they will make sure that she's safe and continue some efforts. But in Mexico, they have absolutely no jurisdiction. Furthermore, she could be anywhere by now. We just know she didn't come back through legally to the United States.
Great points, Jen. Thank you. Yeah, you have to think she's got a cell phone with her, right? Or has heard somewhere about all of this going on. It makes you wonder, does she know that her dad died by suicide? What's her reaction going to be? That's what I want to know when she does learn this information. This is horrible. And then the family, back to the GoFundMe. Kesia, our legal eagle on the panel, I want to save this one for you, please. They're changing the purpose of the money, as you know, initially collected to try to help facilitate the search for Hannah. And now it's going to be for Dad's funeral, which was unexpected. Are there any legal implications that you think the family ought to be concerned with in taking that money that was raised for one purpose and then spending it on another?
Not yet, and here's why, Julie, because they still have the main focus, and that's finding Hannah. This is just one added factor, because I did have the opportunity to look at the GoFundMe page, and one thing I will say about Hannah's sister, Sydney, she is provided updates to the donors, which you don't normally see. You just usually see one narrative and then the donations. But not only is she providing updates, she's being very detailed and specific as to how the donations will be utilized. And that's something that you also do not see. And she made it very clear that we are continuing our efforts to find our sister. But due to this unexpected turn, we also will use a percentage of the donations to bury our father. And the donations are still coming in, if not more. So as of right now, as long as she continues to utilize those donations as she's telling the donors, I do not believe there are any legal issues. And again, I think something is afoul only because this happened to her father.
Great points. Kesia, thank you for all of that. Big thanks to you all for your expertise this morning. Great conversations. Kesia Early, Lieutenant Mike Gould, Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer. We'll see you all soon. Thank you so much. And still to come here on Opening Statements, here's what we've got.
I saw a file with my name on it.
What'd you think?
I thought it was going to be love poems and sweet letters and engagement rings or pictures of us.
Imagine your partner betraying your trust and recording your most intimate moments without your permission. Plus, convicted killer Melody Ferris will be sentenced tomorrow as our biggest week in sentencing of the year continues.
Day.
Welcome back. This morning, we're shining a spotlight on a Tennessee woman who made a discovery that turned her life upside down. She found out that her serious boyfriend had been secretly recording and videotaping their sexual encounters. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Here's Scripps Nashville reporter Nick Barris with the creepy details.
I'm just in shock. And
you recognized yourself right off the bat.
yes, yeah, it was definitely me, him and I, in intimate moments that I had no idea he recorded.
Christiana Werner could not believe what she was seeing. She and her boyfriend of several months, Matthew Vollmer, were talking about marriage. He had met her parents, and here you see the couple dancing earlier this year at a friend's wedding.
He absolutely swept me off my feet. He was charming and sweet and sincere and a gentleman, and fun.
They were very close. Werner says Vollmer gave her a key to his apartment and even shared his computer password, telling her he had nothing to hide. So this past summer, when Vollmer was out of town, Werner logged on out of curiosity.
I saw a file with my name on it.
What'd you think?
I thought it was going to be love poems and sweet letters and engagement rings or pictures of us.
Instead, Werner found a sexually explicit video of her and Vollmer. She looked in the bedroom and found an alarm clock similar to this one with a hidden camera. Then, back at the computer, Werner discovered more files with women's names and explicit videos. She reported it to Metro Police, who charged Vollmer with 8 counts of unlawful photography involving a total of 4 women. There were others, but the 1-year statute of limitations had expired.
It's unlawful to possess that surreptitious material. If you surreptitiously video recorded, it's unlawful to be possession of that. Okay, the statute is clear.
But legal analyst Nick Leonardo says the charge is not a felony, which stunned Werner.
I just couldn't believe it was only a misdemeanor.
Werner and the other women plan to lobby lawmakers to extend the one-year statute of limitations on unlawful photography and to toughen the law for these types of crimes. At least one civil lawsuit seeking damages has already been filed. Vollmer is currently free on $40,000 bond. Now, I did talk to his attorney, who will only say that the recordings were of acts between consenting adults, and there's no allegations that the videos were disseminated.
Oh, my. What do you think of this case? I have a great guest standing by to dig in on it. She is a law professor. She's an author, former prosecutor, and a big advocate for women's rights and children's rights. Attorney Wendy Murphy on the program. Good to see you, Wendy. We thought
Good
of
morning,
you,
Julie.
We thought of you immediately as someone that somebody would call if they found themselves in a situation like this for legal advice and life advice. So let's start with that question. If you got a call from this poor woman who's been victimized in this way, who said, Wendy, what do I do? What would you tell her, please?
Well, first of all, I have had cases like this, many over the years. And the first time I had a case like this, I went to the law books like any lawyer would to see what her rights were and to see what I could offer by way of guidance. And it wasn't against the law. It was not against the law in Massachusetts until fairly recently, and it's also not yet against the law in all 50 states. So people ought to know that if this is happening to you, the first thing to do is check to see whether, in fact, there's a law against it. I also advised this woman to consider filing a lawsuit, because even though it's not a criminal law, it is technically an actionable civil tort, which is to say you could file a civil lawsuit for invasion of privacy. I don't know if you remember this famous law review article from 1890, Julie, but we all learned about it in law school. It was Justice Brandeis who said in a seminal article on privacy rights, the right to control our own private space, the right to be let alone, is the most treasured of rights owned by people. So it's so fundamental, the right to privacy, that it's not even in the Constitution. It's so fundamental that they didn't want to put it in the Constitution for fear it might be mitigated by decisional law over time. I mean, that's how important what we're talking about is, the right to have your own private space. And that's kind of separate from the extra layer of invasion that comes from revealing your private body parts. But that's why this is such a serious violation of rights. Whether there's a criminal statute or not, I recommend to any woman that this happens to file a very expensive lawsuit, because you hit somebody in the pocketbook, it won't happen again.
Wendy, I love that advice. Another question, please. So she discovers other women in her first discovery of herself here, and that apparently he's done this to other people. Would you look into filing jointly with other victims if you were her, or what would be your suggestion in terms of her best legal recourse?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because there are times when filing with others is helpful, and there are times when it might not be helpful because you maybe water down your rights, divide up the pie, if you will. So that can be a complicated question. But joining together, in my view, as an activist for women's rights would be a good idea, because it's a way of communicating publicly and to the courts that this is a problem that disproportionately harms women as a class of people. Women suffer enormously from violations of their rights when it comes to sexual exploitation. Even pornography as an industry exploits women for enormous amounts of money. We're talking about trillions of dollars globally, and women tend to bear the brunt of that. Women are harmed for cash all the time. Now, this may not have been a cash decision for this guy. He may have done it only for his prurient interests. I don't know. I don't care. The point is, we want the public to understand that this is not just a violation of privacy generically. It's a violation that harms women as a class of people in a way that's really a civil rights question, a civil rights issue, something the courts ought to frame and talk about and address as a civil rights problem.
This is such helpful insight from you, Wendy. I want to ask you, please, about the criminal prosecution. And so we know that Mr. Vollmer's attorney has said that these recordings were consensual. That's the defense position, that there was permission, that these were consenting adults. We know it's a misdemeanor in Tennessee. So I'm curious, tapping into your expertise as a former prosecutor, what might you say if you're the prosecutor who gets this case and you come into contact with this victim who is just so sickened at the idea that this is only a misdemeanor?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when something is a misdemeanor but ought to be a felony, your first recourse is to go to the legislature and explain why it has to be a more serious crime. We claim to care deeply about privacy rights, but whether that's true is reflected in how hard the punishment's going to be if you do it, right? And this is a misdemeanor. It sort of suggests we don't really care about women's privacy in particular. Again, this disproportionately affects women. So is this an expression that we don't value women that much because you can harm them and it's kind of a cheap crime? You can get away with it almost. So I would fight about it, get to the legislature, ask them to make it into a felony. I also think, just speaking out is really helpful. It empowers other women to check and to also talk about their suffering. That's good for all of us.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right. And now in this day and age, there's so many ways to do that and to connect with others and really make your voice heard. Wendy Murphy, we are so grateful for your voice, your time, your expertise. Thank you for everything this morning. Hope to see you soon. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, our biggest week of sentencing continues. We're talking about convicted killer Melody Ferris. She's going to learn her fate tomorrow. Will her family drama tip the scales?
Coming soon to Court TV.
It's the biggest story that we're covering. He is the boogeyman. Lori Daybell. She said, I will have you destroyed. She's got another murder trial coming up.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
We will not stop fighting. We have no quit.
Sean Diddy Combs arrested on a federal indictment.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon. Only on Court TV.
We, the jury, ask to count 2, find the defendant guilty. And we, the jury, ask to count 1, find the defendant guilty.
Family drama and very emotional victim impact statements could be what tips the scales of justice at sentencing time in the Byrne Powell murder case. Convicted killer Melody Ferris set to be in court tomorrow to learn her fate. Her sentencing is scheduled for 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and Court TV will be there. The jury told us they were convinced that she murdered her husband, Gary, with their verdict. We learned through one of the jurors that they were convinced of the murder even if they didn't know exactly how it took place. Take a listen.
I can tell you that there should not have been as much damage as there was done. I don't know what that means. That body should not have been burned up.
So, who burned it up?
I think Scott did.
She blamed her son, Scott. Remember that she blamed him for Gary's murder, but the jury didn't believe it. They were convinced it was her who did it. What's going to happen in sentencing? Because remember, her kids, who were all witnesses in this, Gary and Melody, have 2 sons and 2 daughters. They all came in as witnesses. They're all going to have an opportunity to speak to the court as victims and give impact statements tomorrow. Let's bring in our special guest now. He was the former head of the homicide unit in the Norfolk County DA's office in Massachusetts. He's in private practice now. I say he should be a law professor. Attorney Rick Grundy. Rick, good morning to you. Oh boy, tomorrow, this could be a day full of drama. What kind of weight do you think the court will give the impact statements from the Ferris children?
Let me just back up 1 second, and good morning, Julie. But I also wanted to mention that in addition to being a brilliant attorney, and more so even an advocate for her causes, Wendy Murphy is a former Patriots cheerleader and mother of, I believe, 5. So that's one individual awesome. I don't mind.
I didn't know that. That is so cool.
Now you do.
I love Wendy. She is
Miss
so
Farris.
awesome. Would you say?
I said, so Miss Farris, on the other
So
hand.
Miss Farris, I know. Yeah, I know. Back to her. Back to Melody Farris. Yeah. For anybody wondering at home, you and Wendy both in the Boston area, and so colleagues, and that's how you know Wendy. Next time we'll have you both on together since you're just missing each other. Yeah, Melody. So her kids, Scott, her kid. Scott, Chris, the two daughters. I mean, they're all coming in, and she blamed Scott for the murder. Rick. So how do you think this is going to go, especially when he speaks?
So I think Ms. Farris has put herself in a worst possible position she could be. It's a cold-blooded murder of a person that she shared the majority of her life with. The motivation factor seems to be solely money, the destruction of the body by burning it, and then blaming one of your own children or trying to put this charge on one of your own children. There's really nothing mitigating on her behalf. You throw the family mix in there. In this particular case, it's my understanding that pretty much everybody, with the exception of one daughter, was against her or felt that she was responsible for this murder. And the one daughter that was hesitant to go there said, let the jury decide, let the system play itself out. And the jury's decided, and the system is playing itself out. So I really think she's in the crosshairs as much as possibly can be. Whenever you have this family component as a victim, but having particularly a parental linkage there, you never know how it's going to play out. I've had a number of homicides, domestic homicides, where children are supportive of the defendant. In the situations I'm thinking of, it's always been the husband, the father. I've always found that to be natural because to do so otherwise would be you basically orphan yourself. So short of an eyewitness situation, they tend to lean that way. But in a situation like this, I think, again, the tables have been set where the family is going to be with their deceased father. And with respect to that one child, maybe a little more down the middle of the road. But she's in trifecta.
Oh, yeah. She's in deep, deep trouble, as you've said, Rick. Great analysis. So life in prison is the maximum she could get. She has no prior criminal history that we're aware of. How do you see the court coming down here?
So, courts can vary greatly state to state. Certainly in Massachusetts, which, normally tends to be looked at as one of the more liberal states. And I'm not talking politically, I'm talking judicially. This is a life without parole. And I really can't see it going anywhere less than that in a situation of this nature, because again, there's no mitigating factors. I don't know, what was the boyfriend with Randy, I think it was. Maybe he'll come in and say a nice thing. The short of them,
Rusty,
I don't know who's going to say
they're telling me in my ear. Would you say, Rick, one more time? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said short of those individuals, those gentlemen, I don't see who would be coming in to have a kind word about her that would take her sentencing down.
You're exactly right. Yeah, maybe we'll hear from Rusty. That's a great teaser. Will Rusty speak out from Melody? Rick Grundy, you are tremendous. Thank you so much for making some time for us this morning. We'll look forward to seeing you back here again soon. Now, that is all for this episode of Opening Statements, friends, but I want to invite you to a special event that's happening today. Court TV is hosting a virtual meet and greet with me. This is happening on our members-only YouTube channel. It's happening today at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's not too late to sign up. You can still do that.